The Sorcerers. A novella by Amber Wallace. Chapter 4. Once Silva had packed her belongings onto her horse, she and the prince, with Barlo perched atop the bags, set off on their journey to the castle. Alec wasn't sure how long it would take to finally reach home, but Silva had assured him they were about half a day's journey away, especially on foot. He briefly wondered if he was being missed back home. Before their departure, he had learned he'd been unconscious for a full day. If anyone were searching for him, they would have come across his father's men by now. Probably still think I'm out chasing those bandits, he concluded. Sighing, he dared a glance at Silva, who remained focused on the path ahead. He hoped he was making the right decision. Bringing someone who wielded magic and herbs into the castle wouldn't sit well with his father. But Silva had saved him, the heir to the throne. That had to count for something. Silva flicked her eyes toward him, catching him in the act. Alec felt like he'd been caught doing something he wasn't supposed to and, in his distraction, stumbled over a tree root. He quickly regained his footing, but Silva smirked. Trying to shake off his embarrassment, Alec cleared his throat. I have a question. Silva arched an eyebrow as she expertly guided her horse over tangled roots and scattered rocks. That would be? You said you practice magic and work with nature. Don't people like you usually live together? I noticed you live alone. Silva remained silent, her gaze locked on the path ahead. Alec was about to assume she wasn't going to answer when she finally spoke. Yes. Normally. Alec waited for her to elaborate. From behind him, he heard what sounded like a snort from Barlo. The cat had been unusually quiet since their departure, and now, Alec found himself under the feline's sharp gaze. He chose to ignore it. Silva sighed, knowing the prince would press for more. She said, If you must know, yes, I used to live with people like me. We are called sisterhoods. How else do you think I learned to use herbs and spells? We have to be taught, whether by someone or something. Then why are you out here alone? Akum. Barlo huffed, clearly offended. Silva and Alec both ignored him. Creative differences, she replied vaguely. That only made Alec more curious. And what about the sorcerer you're after? At that, Silva stopped walking and turned to face him, her expression unreadable. She pressed her lips into a thin line, her piercing green eyes locking onto his. He is someone I used to know, she said finally. Let's just say he's not someone you want to cross paths with. Her gaze pinned him in place. It's my job to stop him, she continued. I'm not asking you to trust me, but I am asking you to trust me on this. I don't wish to say more. Alec opened his mouth, then closed it. He hated that she was holding back, but he had already learned more than he expected. Instead, he simply nodded. All right. I won't ask any more questions. Silva nodded in return, and they pressed on. By the end of the day, the castle's towers emerged above the treeline. The journey from Silva's cottage had been long and grueling. Alec's feet burned as if he had been walking on swords, but relief washed over him at the sight of home. When they finally broke free of the forest, he took in the grand view before him, the towering spires, the countless windows, and the kingdom's flag fluttering at every corner. Two wolves standing on their hind legs, snarling at each other. Alec turned to Silva. She didn't look pleased to be here. Maybe this was a mistake, he thought, guilt creeping in. He didn't get the chance to say anything before she strode past him, heading toward the castle. Barlo, ever watchful, kept his gaze fixed on Alec as they approached the gates. The cat rarely spoke, but when he did, his words always carried weight. Let me do the talking, Alec told Silva. He knew it would take a great deal of convincing to get his father to allow her to stay. Silva flicked her eyes toward him but remained silent. That uneasy feeling in her stomach had returned.